Good morning, everyone. I apologize that I can't be here in person today. Unfortunately, the weather and road conditions on the Northern Peninsula and through the park didn't cooperate today. However, I am happy to be here remotely to continue with my presentation. So, my name is Ben Wiper, CEO of 3F Waste Recovery, operating out of Mainbrook on the Northern Peninsula, and I'm passionate about waste. And that's why I'm really excited to speak to you all today about opportunities for clean tech innovation focused on taking industrial waste and turning it into high value products, while at the same time diverting millions of kilograms from landfills, utilizing the full value of our natural resources, and bringing new wealth into our provincial economy. But before I jump into the opportunities for innovation, we need to take a look at what's going on in the business environment. Let's start by taking a look now at some of these trends and the challenges and opportunities that they present. To say that we have some challenges in Newfoundland is an understatement, and one of them is our demographics. While Newfoundland and Germany are about the same landmass, Germany has 83 million people, while we've got about half a million, and it's a much older population. Clean tech businesses need to consider the availability of labor, age, skill level, and look for opportunities to design jobs for an aging workforce. There are some excellent funding opportunities available if you partner with a not-for-profit through Age-Friendly NL. Freight and transportation costs should also be a top concern of any clean tech business. Where is your processing facility? Where are your suppliers? Where are your workers? Where's the nearest port to market? You see, these extra expenses really have a big impact on the bottom line, and it makes sense for businesses to be extra aggressive in their cost recovery efforts in order to remain competitive in a global market. Now, speaking of bottom line, that brings us to the next challenging trend, provincial finances. And when we look at the province's finances, we see, well, it kind of speaks for itself, but hey, at least it appears to be contained. You see, Newfoundland has the highest debt per capita and the highest unemployment rate in the entire country. While we might not like to talk about it, any business, including cleantech, has to consider the consequences of having 500,000 people to pay off $13 billion in debt while relying on over $1 billion a year in EI transfers. Our financial fortunes are also super sensitive to the price of oil. Clean tech innovation needs to play a major role in helping solve this challenge because let's face it, we are a natural resource economy. We've got tons and tons of underutilized waste from these industries. We need to be focused on finding ways to take these cheap, abundant raw materials to diversify the economy, create new jobs, especially in rural areas, increase our exports, and generate tax revenue. The time for maximizing private and provincial investment into clean waste management for natural resource industries is now. And this is because two of the top three strategic national priorities are set to happen in northern Newfoundland. Those being a $100 million strategic northern port development and the $2 billion fixed link with mainland Labrador. I mentioned Canadian sovereignty because these projects have the potential to open up a whole new set of clean tech opportunities in the military and defense sector. I won't go into geopolitics, but the Northwest Passage, when it opens up, is going to be a game changer. But more importantly at this time, these projects are going to literally open up the floodgate of northern natural resources worth trillions of dollars to overseas market. With the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, or CETA, and the new Trans-Pacific Partnership, the magnitude of it all really starts to come together. And the global players are already getting in on the action. The oil and gas off the northern coast of Newfoundland alone will generate more than $1 trillion in new revenues in the next 25 years. Grieg recently made a $250 million investment to harvest an additional 55,000 metric tons of farmed salmon per year, and Vail just committed to a $1.75 billion mining expansion at Voisey's Bay. I know that my company, 3F, doesn't want to be late to this party, and neither should you. The question for clean tech businesses is how do we help natural resource companies like these succeed in a sustainable way that preserves or improves our environment? The first thing we have to do is look at developing a comprehensive waste management strategy with clean tech at the heart of it. Imagine my surprise after 12 years living in Nova Scotia, sorting through every last piece of garbage into 5 different bins, and then I arrive in Mainbrook and literally everything goes into a black bag. And we see our current centralized strategy has some garbage being hauled up to 1,200 kilometers around the province, and some regional service boards are seriously considering incineration as a solution. But I've got to give kudos to the provincial government for announcing a comprehensive review of our waste management strategy. This is definitely a much needed step, and every clean tech business owner should want to have a seat at that table for the review. I know I sure do. It is critical that industry is able to help shape waste management policy in the province. The current trends are favorable for clean tech, and we want to keep it that way. Now, for example, as odd as it sounds, expensive garbage is great for clean tech companies, especially if your business is first to market to gain control of the supply of a waste stream. And we've already seen tipping fees double, and they're set to quadruple. And changes in the Environmental Protection Act will require a lot more spending on compliance or risking massive fines. For example, 75% of the dump at sea permits issued in all of Canada go to Newfoundland. And as those permits become harder and harder to get, this is going to create a lot of challenges for some fisheries companies. And finally, with a carbon market where polluters pay, recyclers will be rewarded with credits. You see, the one thing I find that critics of a carbon market often forget is that there's not just a carbon tax, but there's also a carbon credit. And clean tech businesses will generally be the ones earning those credits and generating revenue by selling them back to the industries that pollute, in many cases, their very own suppliers or customers. And the feds are putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to helping businesses find innovative ways to adapt to a changing waste management policy, with almost $9 billion in funding available over the next 7 years. And what I've found is that one of the great things about working in waste is that it is the common denominator for every natural resource industry. That's why if you're working on waste solutions, you'll find your business will be eligible for multiple programs depending on who your customers and suppliers are. So we've got ourselves a waste management review on the horizon, rapidly shifting public policy, and tons of cash. So let's talk about some of the specific resources available for clean tech businesses in the province. There's already an abundance of supports available to clean tech, driven in part by the federal programs we just talked about. Did you know that there are ways to get 75 to 90% grant funding for R&D in the province? Did you know that some towns in the province offer $1 crown lands and 15 years no provincial income tax through the EDGE program? There's funding for public sector engagement with the private sector with the public sector. So you really need to plan your project carefully to maximize your grant funding opportunities. There are programs for labor subsidies and access to expertise as well. And I can't say enough good things about Memorial, Grenfell Campus, and the Marine Institute. In fact, it was reading through the research papers of the university that set me on the path that I'm on right now, developing 3F waste recovery. Because there are literally hundreds upon hundreds of research papers publicly available that are great starting points for clean tech innovators. So now, I hope that, like me, after looking at all these different pieces of the puzzle, that there is a way that clean tech can be the catalyst to turn this crisis into an opportunity. A good starting point for any clean tech business is looking at your supplier's pain points. And in fish processing, waste disposal typically costs 2 to 4% of sales, which really adds up quickly. And right now, these industries are paying a whole lot of money to dispose of a whole lot of waste. While some processors just want to recover costs and not change their operation much, other businesses are interested in generating new revenue streams and creating more jobs. For example, on my cod collagen project, my supply partner is going to create additional jobs by packing, sorting, grading, and delivering the waste that I buy from him. He was selling his waste for 17 cents a pound for mink feed, but by partnering with 3F, he's able to add value and actually charge 30 cents a pound now for his waste and create jobs at his company at the same time. Relieving our suppliers' pain is how CleanTech businesses can secure access to the supply of the waste stream that they want. And one way to achieve this is by giving the supplier a cheaper solution than the landfill. In other cases, you'll need to actually outbid buyers who are already using that waste for a lower margin product. With fish waste, the most profitable opportunities for feedstocks that 3F has found are with collagen, oils, and fertilizer additives, or more generally, proteins, lipids, and leftover biomass. High quality, pure proteins and lipids from all kinds of waste streams are extremely valuable. Just as an example, 1 pound of pharmaceutical grade cod collagen has a retail price of almost $500,000. I kid you not. I have found it particularly advantageous to look at waste streams that have multiple product applications that increase in value. For example, 3F wants all the moose and sheep waste on the island, and at first, a lot of it's going to go to compost, but over time, it'll be used for biodiesel, tallow, glycerin, and lanolin, which are worth much more. It's also necessary to have some sort of compost and convert plan because dealing with waste is kind of like dinner at grandmother's. You've always got leftovers. The takeaway here is that the high value product opportunities with waste generally have applications in cosmetic, pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, and energy industries. And one way to create that value is with clean industrial extraction technologies. The challenge right now is that industrial scale extraction currently relies heavily on toxic or acid extraction processes to keep costs low. The clean tech winners of the future will find ways to create the same product at scale with no harmful byproducts. For example, marine collagen is currently extracted primarily with an acid solvent that must be treated before it can be disposed of. But the process 3F is working on uses enzymatic hydrolysis, and it is a truly clean technology from start to finish. Similarly, there are many opportunities in refining technologies to add value to the extracted product. And for 3F's cod collagen, we've successfully produced a cod collagen that has higher yields, lasts longer, and absorbs better. So together, in partnership with a fish processor, nutraceutical company, and the Marine Institute, we're developing a refinement process that will produce the best, cleanest collagen available anywhere in the entire world right here in Newfoundland. And 3F is barely scratching the surface on the scope of IP opportunities available in waste conversion. There's IP in how the supplier handles and delivers the product. There's IP in the equipment and production processes for extraction and refinement at an industrial scale. The pretreatment, extraction, and post-treatment of the waste is also loaded with IP, and that's because not all waste is created equal. The same waste stream, for example, salmon skins, can have quite a broad range of its various properties values. And depending on the values of those properties, the extraction method that you choose can be optimized for better yields, higher purity, or some other superior property that adds value for your customers. Now, I might be starting to sound a bit like a broken record, but I can't stress enough the critical importance of the feedstock that your CleanTech waste business needs to make its products. You need to ask yourself, does this waste stream have legs? What's the minimum viable product I can make that allows me to start securing the supply? How rare is it? What higher value products can I make as I lock down more of the supply? Where do I go to get more when I need it? When I asked myself these questions, I chose cod and salmon, skins, fins, and fat because it makes a collagen that lasts longer, absorbs better, and has higher yields. So 3F is working aggressively today to secure these supplies because as the world's oceans continue to heat up, Newfoundland will be one of the last places on Earth with year-round access to the cold water fish that's needed to make this superior collagen product. So next, let's take a look at some specific market challenges that are just clamoring for clean tech solutions. One example is with coal-fired power plants. If you can find a way to use the existing equipment with a clean feedstock, you're in a really great spot. And this is exactly what AEG is trying to do with the timber on the Northern Peninsula at a plant in Hawke's Bay. Likewise, global shipping companies are looking for new feedstocks because it is cheaper for them to find new sources of diesel than to pay for costly retrofits to the ship's motors and engines that may still have 20 or 30 years of useful life left in them. Now, obviously, plant oils are not an option. I mean, when's the last time you saw a palm tree in Newfoundland? However, animal and marine oils are abundant and they cost way less than plant oils. But the challenge is that animal oils are too solid at room temperature and marine oils are too watery at room temperature. What we're working on at 3F is a way to blend animal and marine oils into a biodiesel. Could you imagine our communities being able to fuel their public fleet of vehicles with the moose, sheep, and salmon waste that's generated right on the island? I sure can. Another really big area of opportunity is finding ways to make dirty businesses clean. How do we make tar sands oil less polluting? How do we treat the wastewater produced on oil rigs in the middle of the ocean? That's why at 3F we've decided that we're not going to just make any old fish compost from our leftovers. Instead, we're going to use it to develop sustainable, tailored soil additives that make different types of crops grow with higher yields and nutritional values compared to regular soil and fertilizer. The great part of this approach is that we don't have to compete with these gigantic agri-service companies. Instead, we actually sell them a product to enhance their product and make them our customer. So it's time for a quick review of how 3F has taken all of these trends and factors into account to generate a long-term product development strategy. So we've picked our waste streams and then we have engaged with our R&D partners to commercialize the first round of products. And we have made sure that there's a clear vision on how we're going to keep adding value to those waste streams as we secure more and more of the supply. And at the end of the day, your clean tech business needs a vision that's going to deliver a return on investment. So here you'll see what I think is a general revenue model that any waste conversion business should strive for. So in your first couple of years, you're focusing on securing the supply, and you're probably making lower margin products, and at the same time, you should be investing in extraction and refining technologies. But then, over time, you've got higher volumes of waste coming in, and more of it is getting converted into a higher value product, which then makes up a greater and greater portion of your annual revenue and drives up your profit margins at the same time. So far, I've been talking mostly from about the 10,000 foot view of waste recovery and conversion, but I'd like to wrap up today's presentation by taking you up to the 100,000 foot view. And this is what I believe is the future of waste recovery and conversion. So if I were there in person, I'd ask if there are any guesses in the audience about where this is all leading. But since you're not, I'm going to tell you what I think it is. I'm going to make the case that the future of waste conversion is in 3D printing. Have I confused you yet? Don't be. Let's take a quick look and see what I'm talking about. So had I been there in person today, I would have shown some really, really cool videos of some of the latest technologies in 3D printing. One of them was printing a plastic polymer shoe sole for Adidas that a company called Carbon is doing. It's printed directly from a liquid polymer, and you end up with a solid um, sole of a shoe that has properties that no other shoe has. The other video would have been a 3D printed house from concrete. That it was 1,500 square feet, and they printed it in just 100 hours, and there was no waste left over after the house was fully built. And the other video I was going to show was a 3D printing using metal powder. And that was used to create custom parts or very intricate metal parts that just can't be made using traditional tool and die methods. 3D printing gets around all of those issues. And similarly, when you are using a 3D printer, you're able to actually go from a prototype directly to your product. And whereas more traditional manufacturing requires that you've got a whole long series of prototyping and tooling required, and 3D printing avoids all of that. So these are all some really cool technologies, and the connection that it has with 3D printing is all about the ink. We see now that there's aluminum, steel, concrete, different types of plastics and polymers all being used for 3D printing. I mean, there's even 3D printing with cheese now. So what's going to happen as 3D printers can handle more and more types of ink? What happens when 3D printers start printing at the molecular level? I believe very strongly that the landfill of the future is going to be one that is able to break down the incoming waste and convert it into inks that are going to feed 3D printers of the future. So I could talk all day about the opportunities for CleanTech innovators in the smart materials and synthesis, in the development of these inks, in the development of the print head synthesis that's required, the development of the materials, polymers, and molecules that are used as ink. But that's for another presentation. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a taste there so that you can see some of these opportunities that are in waste and how it ties to a kind of unexpected future development, which is 3D printing. And with that, I want to thank you all so very much for your time and attention today and listening to my recording. Unfortunately, since I'm not there in person, I'm not going to be able to answer any questions, but please do feel free to call or email me at the information provided in the bottom right-hand corner of this slide. I love talking about waste and the potential in the industry, so please don't hesitate to reach out to me anytime, and I'd be happy to have a conversation. Thank you all so much, and have a great afternoon.